And delighted to also to be joined by Linda Aspe, who's joining us from the Climate Psychology Alliance, I think, who's going to give us some help and support on psychology, relationships, and resilience when it comes to dealing with some of the mental health impacts of climate change. So I think we're pretty much about there. Um, so I'm going to kick off with a very short video about how to start a movement. And some of you that stayed on a little later on last month's call will have seen it, but I actually forgot to play it to everyone. So um, it's part of our theory of change at Community Climate Action, which both those from Banter sessions and Wendover and Villages will have heard a little bit about or heard about our theory of change and diffusion of innovation. So if you bear with me just one moment, I will just share my screen. There we go. So you should hopefully be able to see the diffusion of innovation bell curve, which you might remember from previous Zooms. We're way over on the left at the moment. Everyone in this room is probably in the innovator category as we kick off and start activity. But a really good video on how to start a movement is by Derek Sivers as a TED Talk. How to start a movement in two minutes, because you can't have a million without one. So here we go.
So ladies and gentlemen, at TED we talk a lot about leadership and how to make a movement. So let's watch a movement happen, start to finish, in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons from it. First, of course you know, a leader needs the guts to stand out and be ridiculed. But what he's doing is so easy to follow. So here's his first follower with a crucial role. He's going to show everyone else how to follow. Now notice that the leader embraces him as an equal. So now it's not about the leader anymore, it's about them, plural. Now there he is calling to his friends. Now if you notice that the first follower is actually an underestimated form of leadership in itself. It takes guts to stand out like that. The first follower is what transforms a lone nut into a leader. And here comes a second follower. Now it's not a lone nut, it's not two nuts, 3 is a crowd, and the crowd is news. So a movement must be public. It's important to show they won't be ridiculed, but they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. So over the next minute, you'll see all of the those that prefer to stick with the crowd, because eventually they would be ridiculed for not joining in. And that's how you make a movement. But let's recap some lessons from this. So first, if you are the type, like the shirtless dancing guy, that is standing alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals. So it's clearly about the movement, not you. Okay, but we might have missed the real lesson here. The biggest lesson, if you noticed, did you catch it? Is that leadership is over-glorified. That yes, it was the shirtless guy was first, and he'll get all the credit, but it was really the first follower that transformed the lone nut into a leader. So as we're told that we should all be leaders, that would be really ineffective. If you really care about starting a movement, have the courage to follow and show others how to follow. And when you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first one to stand up and join in. And what a perfect place to do that at TED. Thanks.
So a couple of lessons there. I hope you all enjoyed the video. But a couple of lessons. A movement must be public. So here we are. We've got a great bunch of people in this room, and we've got some observers. I would request that perhaps those who are kind of joining from our regular banter session from the Great Collaboration, I'm happy for you to contribute. but obviously this is a planning session for Wendover and villages. So if you could perhaps maybe just put on change your name and say where you're from, that would be great, so we can just see who's here. So a movement must be public and it's less risky. Saying a movement must be public, and here we are. Look at this. We've got 30 people on this Zoom call, which is absolutely fantastic. I just mentioned that if those from the banter session could perhaps just change your name and say where you're from. We'd love you to participate, volunteer if you've got capacity and help. That would be fantastic. But it's a planning session for Wendover and villages, so otherwise just watch and see kind of see what we're up to. So on the agenda for today, um, we haven't quite got time really for everybody to introduce themselves, which is a real shame. Because even at 30 seconds or a minute, that's 15 minutes to half an hour of introductions. So I would request that you all just put a short introduction into the chat. That way we can save it for posterity and we know who's here and what you do and what your interest is. And the agenda today, we've done what makes a movement. Just have a we'll do a quick round of updates if anyone's got anything they'd like to share from the previous meeting. And then we're probably going to talk a little bit about biodiversity, retrofitting, and community renewable energy on this particular call. And the purpose of these calls is to gather us together as a group and as a team to think about what projects we might want to take forward when we meet physically for our Wendover and Villages Community Climate Action Planning event, which is on the 11th of October. We'll then be doing a series of 9 follow-up Zooms similar to this, where we can look at funding and project plans to actually make our dreams and our plans a reality. So first of all, just to see who might, if anyone has any updates or anything they'd like to share from previous meeting. So one of the things we've looked, well, we've considered a couple of things. One is biodiversity. So I've shared a model biodiversity duty with Rachel, and for those on the call from the Wendover and Villages parish councils, I wonder if you have an existing biodiversity policy in place, or whether or not you'd consider putting it on the agenda for discussion. So by our respective biodiversity duties, a statutory duty um, for our for any local authority, including town and parish councils, where we've got to consider by our local nature-based recovery systems in any decision that we take in an effort to in an effort to improve our biodiversity, but that means measuring it and then auditing it, which are a couple of the tricky bits, and it was top of the list when we did a survey by the SLCC. So do you want to speak to that moment, Rachel, from Western Turville?
Yeah, yeah, certainly. So Western Turville created our biodiversity plan in 2023, and we updated it in 2024 in line with the model. And it was pretty much the same, but we put it into the same format because it was a good way of looking at it. So we've gone ahead. We've been doing the aims and objectives on it, which are obviously increasing biodiversity, protecting the biodiversity that we've got, managing land and property in our own land that the parish council have, so less mowing of verges. So we've been able to carry all that kind of thing out: less mowing, less chemicals, more flowers, more trees, more bird boxes, hedgehog roots, spaces for bats, etc. We've created a nature reserve with the support of Amanda Barneycoat, who, if she's not on the call, might be joining us, and she's been wonderful. And she also supports Wendover. So it's both the Climate Action Wendover and the parish council, and the same in Western Turville. The Climate Action Group is supported by the parish council, so it's great teamwork. And Amanda Barneycoat is from Chiltern, Wild Belt, part of Chiltern Society, and it's her job to help local people increase the biodiversity. So we'll be working with Amanda. So the hard bits we haven't yet done the audit, and so yes, that'll be big, and we'll be working with Amanda on that in the future. And I've spoken with Jane, who've also done similar things in Holton, but you're on the call, Jane, aren't you? Did you want to report back, or did you want Hugo to say something, or me on your behalf?
Um, sorry, excuse me. Yeah, I don't know if Hugo's on the call actually. I didn't spot him.
No, I didn't.
No, okay. Yeah, so basically, the same as you, we set up our biodiversity policy in 2024, and we started to work on our action plan, and then for some reason abandoned it, I think, because there's so few of us and we've got busy with other stuff. But basically, what we do is everything that we think about in the parish when we're managing, we do think about environmental sustainability and biodiversity. So, a couple of years ago, we got all of the locals out and we planted wildflowers in the verges. And I think Amanda Barnicoat helped us with that to start off with. So we don't actually have any land of our own to manage because we're such a small parish. The only thing that we've got are our verges. And so we've mowed them less, and we've planted wildflowers in them, and we've got bee hotels that we had Linton Gate make for us, sort of the bug hotels that we put into the verges as well. So the only other thing that we do is obviously all the planning applications that come through. There's reams of them, obviously, for the roads and the local things that are going on in the area from Bucks Council. One of our councillors is an architect, and he's a landscape architect. So he's very knowledgeable about trees and about climate change. And so he's very good at every time we see a new planning application, he always comments, particularly with Bucks, about planting hedgerows. And quite often they keep using the same trees, and he suggests better or different sort of trees that are local that they think we should diversify a bit more. So really, that's all we can do because we don't actually have any land of our own.
Thanks, Jane. And Wendover have done similar things to us. They've also got a patch of land. Did you want to say anything, Francis, or are you happy for me to? Yeah. So we spoke at our meeting, and Wendover Wild Belt is wonderful, isn't it? A huge piece of land that Parish Council and the Climate Group have worked with together to increase the biodiversity, and doing similar works to ourselves. Stoke Mandeville are rather burdened, aren't you, Kirsty, with huge projects of building and HS2. But so obviously biodiversity will come into increase, or certainly the community climate action can help Stoke Mandeville with that, because we can work on increasing the increasing the biodiversity along the route of HS2. Indeed, obviously that's their remit, and we'll be holding to it. But I think they want to look good, so there'll be a lot more biodiversity coming into Stoke Mandeville on that section slashing through your parish, Kirsty. So that's our 4 parish brief updates on biodiversity.
Fantastic. Well, that sounds like a good start. And whereabouts are you, Jane?
Jane's Holton Parish Council
Holton.
Yeah,
chair.
Okay, great.
Holton.
So
Yeah.
wonderful
Brilliant.
to have you
Yeah,
with
thanks,
us.
Jane. That gives me a bit of context. I'm sort of familiarizing myself with the geography of the area, so
Yeah.
really handy to know where you are. And
Okay, so we're sort of next to Wendover and Western Turville, but our parish is tiny, but the land is mainly taken up by a Royal Air Force station. And when the Royal Air Force sold the village off, no land was given to the villagers. So we basically got a village hall with a car park, and then we've just got vergers, but we don't actually have any land of our own.
okay, might be really interesting to get in touch with the RAF. We're doing that in our local area. The RAF have a net zero target of 2040, I think, for all of their operations. They're taking it very seriously. And also the forces often have volunteer days. so forces personnel can go and volunteer for local things. So the army were out cleaning a beach recently, picking up plastic, that kind of thing.
And I must say that they do help us. They are brilliant, but they look after our churchyard for us.
Oh wow,
So they
cool.
come out, the recruits come out and clean up the churchyard.
Yeah.
And also we have volunteers on our speed watch from the RAF as well. So we've got a great relationship with the station. They do have an environmental section, and
Mm,
they used to do work where they were looking after wild orchids and stuff like that on the RAF site. They've got rare grasses and all that sort of thing. And we have tried to get involved with them and join their environmental group. But they're not very keen to have us because I think they just don't want us to be able to see what they've got. But that's partly because the station is closing and it's being
okay.
sold off for house building. And we've done a lot of work with Bucks Council on the plan for the site. I'll
Mm,
wrap up in a sec. And in that plan, they're going to conserve things like the orchids, the wild grasses, all that sort of stuff. And we're looking at all the protections of all the woodland, etc. So we've done a lot of work with Bucks Council on that. But obviously, there's not time here to go into all of that because eventually we will get that land ourselves when the station closes. But
mm.
that's some way off.
Okay, wow, that's really fascinating to learn, particularly if the recruits are helping. The air cadets or similar might like to come to the climate action workshop, so we could perhaps invite the RAF.
Yeah.
Um, are you guys familiar with BioBlitzes?
No.
No.
No. So I'll put some links in the chat. So in Essex, in a local area, they're doing a BioBlitz with a piece of recording software called iNaturalist. And so you can walk around with your phone, you can take pictures, and it will automatically identify plants, species, flora, and fauna, and add them to a map for you. So I'll just pop details of that in the chat. So as we get together, it'd be really interesting to look at our biodiversity holistically between the four areas, and also how we may look at creating wildlife corridors, bee highways and this kind of thing between the parishes. So something to consider. So I wonder if there's anyone on this call that might like to support that kind of work, has a particular interest in nature-based recovery, um, and might want to help Jane and Rachel and others look at biodiversity.
Sorry, but this is Sean here from Wendover. When you say support, what do you specifically mean? This is my first meeting.
Oh,
Here.
sure. So I guess really, Sean, I'm asking if there's anyone on this call that would like to volunteer some time to organise a BioBlitz and or a sort of benchmark, if you like, for biodiversity in the four parishes.
I, I I don't know whether I'll be the bloke taking my shirt off at the front of the thing, but supporting it certainly.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm interested in sort of geospatial data, so that kind of falls into my bailiwick a little bit.
Hmm.
What I think I'd like to do would be to identify who's doing what first, because there may
Yeah.
be somebody already doing it. But I'll speak to Francis and others and ask them.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think I think I think that's the best thing to do. I mean, this is kind of a meet and greet, and it's really just the start of something. Of course, if you volunteer and you discover or life happens and you don't have capacity, it's always okay
yeah,
to hand stuff back. It's nothing particularly
yeah.
um,
Onerous.
onerous is a good word right now. If you've got an interest in geospatial stuff, that's kind of ideal because as a good bit of it is mapping.
Yeah.
Another bit is just called ago. I think I might have unfrozen. I heard you talking, Rachel. So,
Fill the gap.
yeah, so I was just going to suggest, we're starting to coalesce with perhaps Jane, Rachel, Sean, and and others into a little group that could think about managing this as a project, and also where we might build other capacity from. So, it's not the end game in terms of a team that we're forming now, but it's the start of a group. And what I was saying, Sean, is yeah, if you're into geospatial and mapping, that's a really key component part in a lot of the stuff that we do.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of maps because every journey starts with a map.
And everything has a place somewhere.
Absolutely, and we all have it. We'll have a destination,
Yeah.
be it community energy, retrofitting,
Yeah.
biodiversity. All of this will be kind of mapped, really. So
Okay. Yeah. No,
yeah,
I'd like to do that. Thank you.
brilliant, brilliant. Okay, cool. So that's a little bit of an update on biodiversity. Anything else from anyone before we perhaps move on? No, okay. Um, Another thing that has been mentioned is retrofitting.
Rachel, you're on mute.
Bother. Yeah, I was saying while Joolz is frozen, I'm very interested in retrofitting as part of our um, community climate action, and I know a lot of you here will have expertise in retrofitting, and yeah, a lot of knowledge, and Kirsty's involved as well, and yeah, all sorts of different ways. Are you back with us yet, Joolz?
I am indeed. Yeah, I froze a bit
Great.
there, and really it was good, relatively good timing because I was just kind of handing over to you to say to talk about your interest in retrofitting, and I think you mentioned a particular street that you'd like to look at.
Yeah, so it's when I spoke to John Christophers, who was part of the team in Retrofit Balsall Heath in Birmingham, they started with a street of mixed housing, social and owner occupied. So we've got a street in Western Turville that fulfills that. So we would be thoughts at the moment. Obviously, we haven't had our workshop yet, but that each parish could have a street. We can then again Joolz expertise. Finding out which is the best way of getting funding, and then offering retrofits to people in a particular street and rolling it out. And again, you, Kirsty, you probably had more experience of this in as much as you're working with Ed Gemmell in Hazelmere, aren't you, on with retrofit ideas? So
Yeah, we
come
haven't.
in there.
We've still not had our funding through, but yeah. I mean, my feeling is that we're done with the streets at this point, and that we should really be just going for whole villages in order to achieve some sort of scale. But on the other hand, it doesn't really matter as long as you start somewhere. So
Yeah, I mean, when I say streets, I don't mean just do a street. I mean do the whole village, but street by street. So just starting maybe with people who may not have had in a street where people may not have had the money to do much themselves, and then yeah, just moving on around.
Yeah, it's really interesting retrofit. The average cost of a retrofit is in the region of £30,000, including renewable energy installation and what have you. There is government grant funding. There are a variety of qualification criteria. There are also other schemes and other sources of capital, in particular for community buildings. So you can get a grant to have a free energy audit up to £2,500. And then you can have the capital cost, even six figures, 100, 150,000, covered by the Resilience Fund, which is 40% grant and 60% loan. So we're doing that with our rugby club. I've had a call with Paul, who's the chair of Aylesbury Rugby Club, and he's interested in investigating that and looking at it to see if that's something they'd like to take forward. So that's the result. So it could be a real good exemplar and a showpiece for people to have a look at.
Yeah, and I see what you mean, Kirsty. You mean rather than do street by street, just make the plan to go for the whole village all at once. So look at your 30,000 multiplied by your 4,000 houses or whatever, or in our case, it's 1,500 at the minute. But yeah, it's sort of go for big funding straight away rather than.
the trouble is, Rachel, is that it's really difficult to get funding for owner occupiers who are relatively affluent, and we live in quite an affluent area. We're not in an opportunity bucks area. So yes, Joolz is right, but the grants are dwindling for this stuff. So you've got the boiler upgrade scheme, you've got Eco4 and Eco4 Flex. Flex has some health criteria in addition to what you can get for Eco4. And then really for for homeowners that can afford stuff, there aren't really grants apart from the boiler upgrade scheme. And there's the Great British Insulation Scheme, but again, you have to have your house has to be below a D EPC and all of that kind of stuff. I just on the cost of retrofit. So the project in Hazelmere, we're not going for the cost that Joolz quoted is usually quoted including like external wall insulation, which really ramps the cost up. But actually, you could decarbonize a house for around 11 grand. That's not necessarily including the insulation, but that's just to get off gas. And we in Hazelmere, we want to look at the kind of basic stuff that might cost around 7 or 8 grand to try and make it a little bit more palatable and start. Because what we've generally found is that if you've got solar, you then move on and do the rest. Because once you've kind of got over the hurdle of, is this a new technology, am I going to get burned and am I going to damage my house and all of that kind of psychological barrier, then people are generally inspired. And you don't have to do everything at once, but people are afraid of it, Joolz, you're right, because they think it costs 30 grand and they're like, I can't afford that. So but anyway, it's a very complex area. I can't wait to see Rachel make it happen though, because if anybody can, it's you.
Sure. It is complex. Yeah, very definitely. David, Morgan-Jones.
Good evening, everybody. Really interested to hear what's going on. Again, we're all struggling in identical parallel universes. We are in North Hampshire. What we're doing, just to help you with the retrofitting, is we're starting a program of EPC upgrades across the parish. We're struggling a little bit getting the funding for those that don't have it and aren't willing to pay for it. A lot of when we did an analysis of all our houses, we used Parish Online, which has all of that inbuilt, and it tells us exactly which houses do not have an EPC, or if they do, what grade it is. And our view is, A, we get everybody's EPCs up and running, and then B, once we've identified it, we'll only focus on those that are D and below. And whilst that's not a perfect solution, it's a pragmatic solution in that we can try and focus on those that really, really need it, and where insulation is going to make a significant difference. So yeah, just I thought I'd share that with you.
Yeah, thanks very much. It is tricky. Getting people's buy-in if they're renters, landlords. It's ironic. I can hear you perfectly, Rachel, but obviously loses my connection. Yeah, I was just saying that. Yeah, I mean, I admire um, your ambition, Kirsty, to do it all, but the sheer cost and most importantly capacity of that it will be quite a trick, I think. So perhaps we just start somewhere and look at the street. We've got in our parish, we've got 580. Okay, well, apologies to everyone for the poor internet. So, but yes, so we've got 84% that are band D or below. So if we do 3 a month, which is an awful lot of work, it will take us 13 years. So, let's make a plan of how we do this over a period of time, because some of the challenges are down to capacity in terms of trusted tradespeople and materials. So we could perhaps start somewhere. I'm just going to quickly share my screen. There's a lovely 2-minute clip from Retrofit Reimagined that I presented at.
Joolz, sorry, before you do that, I think on that question of how long it takes to do, I think that to draw the analogy from your TED talk at the beginning, were any of the people that were after the first follower, was anybody actually carrying those people onto the field to do the dancing? Or were they motivated to have their own agency and to do the stuff? Because I think sometimes we get absolutely paralyzed by this idea that we have to pay for people to have retrofit, but we don't pay for them to have new bathrooms or new boilers or sort out their double glazing or fix their roof. So at some point, you just have to make it normalized that they will have an energy efficient home and that it's the sensible thing to do. So I think that's all I would add on that is it's really fatal to start talking about grants, because then people think, oh, someone else will sort it out for me. But the whole point of your community climate action is that everybody can do a little bit, isn't it? And he's gone again.
Yeah, thank you, Kirsty. Yeah. so that will be great, won't it? Hopefully, we've all got a lot of contacts within our communities that will be able. So there's us lot now, but there'll be more coming on board as we get started. We can't hear you, Joolz.
Can
Oh
you
yeah,
hear
you're
me?
coming back. You're coming back.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Kirsty. Yeah, really, I was talking about capacity in terms of tradesmen. If there's 1,000, 1,500 homes in Western Turville, physically, how long would it take if say there were 150 heat pump installations every month? It would take a year, that kind of thing. So really, it's about making a plan over time. Because there probably isn't capacity in the local area in terms of tradesmen, in terms of installation. I wasn't really talking about the funding, but it's starting, it's having a plan for how long it will take to get from A to B. I see some hands up, so I'm going to go to Michelle and then David.
I just want to follow on from what Kirsty said. Really, in that if you start quoting, it's going to cost you £30,000 to £60,000 to retrofit your home, you are automatically then going to be like, oh, I don't. You shut down and you don't really want to get involved at all. I think you should start on saying how much little bits cost rather than going into this full. This is how much it's going to cost, and then I just believe that exactly what Kirsty said is that it starts then becoming your individual homeowners like responsibility. So I just wanted to support what Kirsty said really in terms of that messaging.
Sure. Yeah, the £30,000 figure is the average cost as stated by the government. So I'm just quoting an average cost. When we're thinking about planning, it's really helpful to know what it would take. And in Suffolk, we've got interest-free loans for up to £15,000. Nationwide are offering a mortgage interest-free as well for up to £15,000. So that's an average cost for all of it. And that isn't necessarily what I would quote to someone straight on the doorstep to try and convince them to do it. And like I say, it's small steps. So over to David.
Just a few places you might check to get a bit more information to the southwest of you. In Oxfordshire, there are local low-carbon groups who do things like arrange volunteers to do draft busting. So not big installations, just sealing up drafts done by volunteers. In Rose Hill, they even have a supply of insulation materials at which you can get. And then there's an organisation, Cozy Homes Oxfordshire, where you can actually find out how to insulate and how to best improve your house. And they've even got to the point where you can pay them to do an assessment, and they vet all the tradesmen, of which are a lot in Oxford and Milton Keynes.
Thanks, David. Yeah, I'm sure Kirsty is pretty au fait with much of the possibilities for draft excluding. You've been working on the UK Power Networks Powering Down scheme, offering home energy efficiency advice, I think, with a load of energy champions. So thanks, David, for building on that. So there's a short film from Retrofit Reimagined, short. It's a 2-minute clip from Retrofit Reimagined. So bear with me a moment while I share my screen.
Huge amount of money that came from the government, green grants, and it was all about retrofit, improving the material quality of our homes. There was no uptake. The money went back to central government because nobody wants safer, warmer, cheaper to run homes that are better for your health, that are better for your children, or neighbourhoods with cleaner air and better transport, more biodiverse and green front gardens. We're I was like, this doesn't make any flipping sense. What do you mean that there's no uptake? We started to realise, okay, there's many reasons to that low uptake. Different entanglements from across finance, from across governance, from across all of these different layers. Surely, if all the incredible community and neighbourhood organising on the ground doing amazing work, if they were activated in this story and they saw retrofit as a key part and site of imagination and possibility, surely we'd be in a different place.
What if the retrofit of our homes, communities, neighbourhood streets were led, governed, owned, designed, not by some government scheme, but were led by the community that live here? What if?
There's a cultural shift going on within architecture, construction and community groups now. They're not looking for that star architect to build a pinnacle, some glassy box in the middle of the city centre. They're looking for their homes to be saved. They're looking for their bills to go down.
We see housing as more of an asset or an accumulation of wealth than the necessity that it is. We don't see it as important as the need for food and water, when Maslow's hierarchy of needs states that basic shelter.
Yes, that's right. Sorry if it paused a moment there. I stopped sharing and everybody disappeared, and I didn't know if you could hear me. So there's a little bit on retrofitting. So what we're hoping to do is garner some energy and enthusiasm and build, learn more about the work that you might be doing already, Kirsty, looking at particular places. David mentioned Parish Online, and I wonder if that's a tool that you're familiar with. I've got it online. So again, I'll just share my screen. So again, Sean, when it comes to sort of geospatial mapping, this is a really handy tool. It's called Parish Online. Has a relatively small subscription cost for a town or parish council. And if a parish subscribes, then it's made available for any green groups in the area. And there's a 3-month free trial at the moment as well. So I use it in my parish. But what we're looking at here is actually Western Turville. So you could actually plan, again, where you get the biggest bang for your buck for your EPC intervention for. And pleased to see quite a lot of EPCs up sort of amber or green. But there are some reds and oranges dotted about. So I don't know if you can see the particular neighbourhood on there, Rachel, that you were thinking. Oh, you're on mute.
Yes, it's just off on the top right. I'm just trying to get my bearings there, Manor Farm. That's Main Street, isn't it? Yeah. So it's that circular one that you can see at the top there. You can see a little circle, which is a circle of bungalows in the middle. So it's probably 60s. It was originally a 60s council estate of nice big homes that are now a mixture of owner occupied and social. But I haven't put that to anyone else yet, so it's something to be discussed at the planning.
Sure.
What is the amber then, Joolz?
Amber is an E, a yellow is a D, and a green is a C+.
Wow, so it's still not great.
Most new builds are C+. So C+ is pretty good, but yeah, really where you want to target your activity is D and below. So yeah,
I'd say a lot of those C's in the middle there, Rachel, are social housing, and they've been done through the grants.
They have, yes. Their Fair Hive has been insulating. So if they're already insulated, they might be ready for. They haven't got air source or ground source heat pumps. So yeah, one of our parish councillors lives in one of them with which has been insulated really well, but so would be air source heat pump ready, hopefully.
And of course, when you're considering a conurbation like this, you could always look at district heating that they've delivered very effectively in Swapham Prior in Cambridgeshire. David, you've got your hand up.
Joolz, yeah. Just for info, I speak to Tristram Carey, who is I think the chair of, or I can't remember, I don't quite know what his relationship, but he's fairly significant in Parish Online on a weekly basis. I've asked him if they would be able to produce the ability to produce spreadsheets from that data. so that we can put a filter in to exclude all the Cs and above, and then give us a printout of all the lists of all the houses by street postcode that are D and below.
Great. I think
so they're working on that at the moment, I think.
David, I think that is already available via the government's data portal for EPCs. I'll find out what it is, but definitely I work for Community Energy Pathways, and Tim pulled out that exact information for me about some villages in Essex recently.
Yeah.
But I'll ask him which one it is and whether it's open source and like as in open access data.
I know that most of the county councils and the district councils have access to a much more sophisticated system than we do, Standfast Parish Online, and that does produce the data, but it's gaining access to it and trying to persuade your friendly district council officer to produce you a spreadsheet. It's an option. I would prefer if I could control it, because it gives us much more flexibility at parish level. But yeah, no, the data does exist. It's just a question of extracting it.
Yes, it's open. It's invariably open government data. That's where Parish Online get the data from. I think, David, yes, I regularly speak to Tristram as well, and that would be a really handy feature. I do know that some open source developers have done a similar thing, and you can just go to a website and download the raw data into a spreadsheet, so you can filter out all the Cs and have the addresses. But if it was native in Parish Online, that would certainly be helpful.
The other thing that they're trying to do, which goes on to energy generation, is working with a team to produce an analysis of all roofs in order to identify those that are capable of holding or having solar panels being put on them, and the total amount of kilowattage if everybody accepted solar panels on their roofs and the battery storage systems that could be generated by a community if there was a community push to have this capability put on, which for me is extremely helpful. And also the ability to look at ground-mounted systems where that is possible, in order to make up the deficit where houses can't have it for whatever technical or sort of tree reason, to actually make up the difference in terms of total kilowattage required for that particular community.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Centre for Sustainable Energy have got a similar, very elegant tool for solar potential, where there's LiDAR data available from Ordnance Survey. And yes, it would be fab if we could have that kind of functionality all in one place. So definitely, those are the kind of conversations we're having in our development team at the Great Collaboration and with Tristram. So hopefully we'll see that coming soon, so we can look at the solar potential for a street, for instance. Kirsty's just put a link in the chat to, I think it's the same open source tool that I've used previously, where you can download EPCs. So that's really helpful. Thanks, Kirsty. And is anyone familiar with Power Station? So I'm going to show you another very short film. Again, it's only 2 minutes. And it's looking at how we collectively come together as streets, and again, street by street, neighborhood by neighborhood, town by town, both for retrofitting. And then we can perhaps move on in the last 5 or 10 minutes. We can talk a little bit about community renewable energy. And fabulous, we've got Kirsty here, so she'll be able to give us a bit of an update and how Buck's community energy is going. So the Power Station is a couple, Daniel and his partner, who have decided to do a street by street project starting in Walthamstow in London.
I have a lot of tea, to be honest with you. I have 20 cups minimum a day.
Really?
Yeah.
20 cups of tea?
Minimum. That's minimum.
Really?
Yeah.
we're trying to do is to raise the money to buy solar panels for every house on the street.
Right.
Can you make a film just on one street and make it interesting? Well, you can definitely make a film on one street.
Can't they find a grown-up to run the country? Dear God.
Are you really worried that it could be the end of the world?
It could be. It could be. Climate change is like a huge thing. People don't do enough about it. They think about it. They say, oh, this and that, but
you, because of the money, are kind of trying to put the brakes on. The point was we wanted to do the whole street, but yeah, financially, you know, we've got a bigger challenge ahead.
Think you can do this?
Yeah.
I have late, but wherefore I know not, lost all my mirth. Man delights not me, no, nor woman neither, nor woman neither.
Damn the camera, oh, it's all coming in, the camera's down there.
I think we can sell £1 million, maybe not just from here, literally. It has to explode out from here.
Power means everything, my dear, doesn't it? Power means everything.
Who knows? Everybody in Waltham Forest, everyone in the UK might end up with solar panels. It would be so amazing.
It's not just about physical infrastructure, it's about the infrastructure of what we think is possible, the imagination really.
So there we go. That was Daniel and his partner on his roof doing a bit of a stunt to raise some money via a crowdfunder, but also bringing a community together in Walthamstow in London and looking how they can collectively install solar panels for a street. So this is the kind
Sorry, Jules, do you know what happened with that project? Because that was in about 2022. Do you know whether they actually managed it or what happened after that?
It's still ongoing. They've just released their film, so perhaps you can organise a film screening about it. But
yeah, but did they actually achieve what they set out to do? Or
I don't think they have yet. But as you know, these things take time, so it's an ongoing project.
It would be, yeah.
So my suggestion was going to be to perhaps organise a screening of these kind of films, gather together as community. The basis of most of these things is community. It's not necessarily the solar panels, it's not necessarily the technology, but it's the will. And, you know, Rachel, the little cul-de-sac that you mentioned might be a good place to start.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So David's just put in the chat, looks like they did the Eynsham area, and first target reached for the crowdfunder for Power Station. They're doing it in a novel way. They're looking to crowdfund to do it. I've talked to Daniel about that and suggested that a better way might be via community shares, with a clear payback. But what's really interesting to me in terms of what they're doing is the community spirit that they've engendered and just going around and having a cup of tea and knocking on the door with their neighbours. Part of this process will also be looking at community renewable energy and the prospects for things like onshore wind, bulk buying for rooftop solar happening where you are. Kirsty, I wonder if you wanted to maybe give us a quick pre-say, a bit of a heads up in terms of how you're getting on with Bucks community energy and how we might be able to support that.
Are you talking about solar on schools and things like that, or are you talking about farm solar, or what did you have in mind?
Any or all of the above. Onshore wind is probably the best bang for your buck. Whether or not you've considered a wind turbine, one of our members at the Great Collaboration, Kristin, is parish council in Gamlingay. Kirsten, sorry, parish council in Gamlingay, and they've got a wind turbine that's been producing lots of
electricity.
Yeah, fill in the gap. I'll just fill the gap then. So unfortunately, Aylesbury Vale's not brilliant for wind. There's a really cool website where you can go and map where places are good for onshore wind. And to be quite honest as well, it's not necessarily a great bang for your buck unless you've got a lot of patience. But I mean, it is once you get it up. But in terms of the rigmarole around feasibility, it's much more expensive Also in Buckinghamshire, we've got a ton of field solar going in. So personally, I wouldn't necessarily want to see community-owned field solar. What I would want to see is shared ownership of those commercial developments. And that I did actually have a meeting with Callum Anderson, who's the North Bucks MP, about the Rosefield solar project, which is a massive battery and solar installation that they're gonna. It's an NSIP, which is a nationally strategic infrastructure project. So they have to go all the way up to the Secretary of State to get permission, and then they have to go for all sorts of other things. But it's near Claydon House. It's on the Claydon estate, and it's surrounded by other applications for solar, field solar. So I don't know that Buckinghamshire actually can tolerate any more field solar. What I'm more interested in is trying to get Bucks Council to do more to facilitate school solar, which is by far the biggest need for the community. And unfortunately, Joolz, I don't know whether you know much about Buckinghamshire Council, but they are absolutely useless. Oh, hi, Eli, one of my members. Sorry, I haven't done Wharf Road yet. But yeah, basically, it's been a real uphill struggle. And the main issue for Buckinghamshire Council is that they have a budget of 1.2 million or something like that to carry out their climate action strategy. And they have designated it a capital fund. And so they never invest in officers to actually deliver on the actions, and they never spend that budget. And this has been going on for about 3 or 4 years. And it's never occurred to them that in any given year, when they haven't spent the money, that what they should do is allocate some of it for a person to actually carry it out. It is like giving a child pocket money and then not providing them with any access to the shops. So that's really what we're up against. And although it's not so much community action that we need, because I have no doubt whatsoever that once we can unlock some of the technicalities, I have no doubt at all that we'll find investment from the community. Our issue is actually bringing the stakeholders that matter together and getting them to actually help us achieve what we need to achieve. Hello, Joolz, are you back? Back.
I pretty much caught all of that right up to the challenge being bringing stakeholders together. So I feel your pain. And yes, I have an inkling what the county council are like. And that can be a bit of a blocker. And yes, we've got a similar challenge in Norfolk and Suffolk with loads of solar farms being brought forward by commercial organisations, leaving little capacity with substations and or for community renewable energy, but we're giving it a good shot. We're looking at some agrivoltaics, which is solar on stilts, so you can still use the land for productive horticultural and agricultural production. But perhaps we could talk more about rooftops, and in particular warehouses is an interesting one that we're finding some traction with. So very large scale roofs. And we're looking at some school projects. So look forward to comparing notes moving forward as well, Kirsty.
Well, you're lucky. At least you've got Suffolk is a very positive. I know you've got the district system and a unitary and a overall, yeah. But you do have a lot more positivity in your county. But you've also, you've got lots of solar farms coming forward because of the connections queue being unzombified. So there's lots of other stuff going on as well. And the other thing that we should be doing as a county, and maybe even at parish, I think at parish level, is local area energy planning, because we've got a massive housing allocation potentially coming our way. So that's what we call spatial planning, but they don't take into account in the energy planning. The planning officers don't really read the utility statements. I won't bore everyone with the detail, but suffice to say that what parish councils can start doing is, when you get a planning application in for a housing estate of 10, 20 more houses, is look closely at the utility statements, because a lot of the time they're not giving enough demand to the houses, and they're not asking enough of the DNO in terms of the connection requirement. And I think that's going to come home to roost. But it also means that residents might find themselves unable to connect to the grid at some point, because if all the capacity is taken up by new houses, then that might cause an issue. And that's where the energy planning comes in as well. You need to look at a community and say, is it decarbonising fast? Is is it going to be an issue for this housing to get onto the server, onto the grid without reinforcement? I could literally bore you about this for about 4 hours, so I'll stop there.
We've got time another time. Yeah, I do.
Honestly, you will glaze over at some point.
No, I'd love to geek.
You're like,
I'd love to
I
geek out about all
submit.
that stuff. I'd love to geek out about all that stuff. Rachel, you mentioned a new development with Taylor Wimpey, I think, and it's a really important thing with this amount of new homes. You know, that we do ask the developers, where is the energy coming from? And, you know, many of them are built with air source heat pumps, but without any solar, which is crazy because it just make them very expensive for the homeowners. So that's a, you know, it's a conversation we can have now. So. Great. So we're at 8 o'clock, so probably gonna keep to time. And look forward to seeing you all at the next Zoom, which will probably have more of a focus on food, and also perhaps transport is a tough nut to crack, so we can start thinking about that. Any other parting comments before we wind up?
I was just so I'm in Stoke Mandeville. We're a bit behind on the whole climate action thing, and I was really looking for some inspiration around our allotments, because it occurred to me last night actually that we could probably be doing more as a parish council. We've got money that we could put into our allotments to make them nicer for our holders, but maybe more productive in some way. So I was just if you know, maybe next time, people who have done good allotments, what does good look like for an allotment? And maybe that fits in with your food theme. I'd be quite interested in understanding a bit more about that.
Great. Okay, cool. Two things then for those that might have an extra couple of minutes. An allotment is an award or gift of something. And it was the outcome of a 28-year political campaign from 1880 to 1908 that culminated in the Small Holdings and Allotments Act. Which means that we're all entitled to an allotment. So don't let anyone tell you we're not. I'd love to talk about allotments. I can probably bore you with those as well. And also, just I would like to take a moment just to introduce Linda Aspie, and ask if you could perhaps just give us a quick overview of your work and how you might be able to support our groups in Wendover and villages with the mental health aspect. It came up on our last call in terms of climate cafes and how we can hold one another in this process.
Yeah, thank you. Hello, really interesting meeting as well. Thanks for inviting me. Yeah, at the Climate Psychology Alliance, we run and we also run training in climate cafe listening circles, and they're very specifically aimed at places that aren't action focused, they're really feelings focused, and it gives people the chance to regroup and connect and to talk about how they're feeling with other people who don't say, oh, never mind, it's going to be fine. And they're actually quite a lovely process to go through, to be in, because through that people begin to feel less alone, and particularly young people can be quite affected by what's going on. So we have a youth team as well that looks after youth spaces. We also do talks in organisations on climate psychology, on how to, it's really much more about how to work with the feelings we've got and use them to good effect and to build resilience. So we do those kind of things. So you can look us up at the Climate Psychology Alliance. I'm also a facilitator of assemblies. I've just taken part in House of the People, where we did a citizens' assembly for 100 people. So anything like that, I'm very happy to pitch in. I used to live in Aylesbury, in Lower Hartwell, but I had to sell my house to HS2, so I'm not a fan of HS2.
Well, thanks very much for the brief introduction, Linda. We look forward to having your support as we go through this process and start to really encourage that kind of active listening. As we broaden our audience, it can be quite a heavy load to carry when it dawns on us quite where we are with the climate. So it's really, really helpful to not feel alone and to have someone to listen. So thank you.
And I should have just added, if I might, I'm doing another session for Banter in October, and I'm going to do a session on climate cafe listening circles. I'll explain what they are and how they work and why they work, and we'll have a little chance to have a mini experience of one.
Fantastic. And having lived in Aylesbury, you know the local area, which is brilliant. So great. Okay. Well, thanks so much, everybody. You'll get a reminder for the next preparatory Zoom, which we can geek out about allotments and food growing, Kirsty, amongst other things. And we can consider active travel, walking and cycling. I think there's some aspirations to maybe again have some safer cycling and walking between the parishes. So really looking forward to that. And great news, we've got nearly 50 people booked on for the actual in-person workshop. So well done. Yeah, give yourself a round of applause. And I'm really looking forward to meeting you all, those that I haven't met before in person.
That'd be great. And can I just say thank you to Fiona for running climate cafes in Chesham along those lines, Linda. So you've been partnering, haven't you, Fiona? And it's been very wonderful.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you next time.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Thanks, Ellen. Bye. Thanks, Murray. Murray's Wendover HS2 mitigation, Joolz. So fantastic that he was able to join us tonight, along with somebody else. Long gap while I remember his name.
Andy Band was on the last one.
Thank you. Thank you. And did he talk with you afterwards, Murray?
Yes, and we're doing some stuff with Martin Baxter.
Oh, great. Who was on tonight?
Yes, so we HS2 is now getting to the stage where they are trying to build the project plan again.
Yeah.
This is Mark Wild's challenge, because when he took over as CEO, he discovered that EKFB had only got 55% of their design documentation in place.
Oh gosh.
And so he's committed to the Secretary of State to come back with a plan, a costed plan that's deliverable. And the problem is that EKFB have to work out what the heck it is they're actually going to build, how much it's going to cost, and how long it's going to take. And they need to do that by the end of November.
Gosh.
So the sort of stuff that we got last week was an interesting meeting with EKFB with the parish council, where they felt they needed to look at their land restoration projects for Ellisborough Road and Backham Lane, because the parish council is responsible for the street lighting. And so they had to speak to the parish council. We saw the landscaping plan for Ellisborough Road and came up with 8 issues.
Yeah.
And it's all sorts of things like, why are they building roads where they are? What are they doing with the rights of way? Don't they not understand, how people are actually using the rights of way locally? There was a great link between effectively the Wendover Station Railway Bridge and Welwick, where somebody had drawn a straight line on a map, not understanding that somebody's put a green tunnel in the way and it's going to be a big slope up the side. This sort of crap. Also, the Bucks Greenway project. Do you know about Bucks Greenway?
Yes.
Where they've got an idea about the track along the top of the green tunnel, which is good. Then at the moment they don't have any connection between there and Ellisborough Road, and they showed us the landscaping plan between Ellisborough Road and Backham Lane, and there's nothing there. And then they've got a organised right of way that goes from Backham Lane past Grove Farm to the roundabout at the bottom of the bypass, and we've been leaning on them today about the bit of cycleway between there and Dunsmore Lane.
Great. That's really key, isn't it? Ruthie was on the meeting tonight. She's been talking to us about
she would like to cycle between Wendover and Dunsmore safely.
Yeah,
and so they're going to dump 3,700 tons of rock down the side of the A413 in September to rebuild the embankment. And they said today, well, yeah, we'll have the A413 sorted by the summer of next year. So we said, why can't you build the cycleway as soon as you get the rock in? And they said, oh. And I mean, we've got that escalated as far as the HS2 CEO and Greg Smith. So
I'm not quite sure where we go from there. Maybe we need to do a stockade outside Chequers.
Yes.
Yeah. It has been done.
Absolutely hopeless, isn't it? The lack of communication and planning.
Yeah, it's crazy. Right. So that's where we are. Interesting to hear what's going on. We're plotting our own little retrofit here. There's a man coming to survey every room in our house tomorrow, and we're thinking about an air source heat pump and solar panels and trying to work out what it looks like. It looks like it's going to take us 11 years to pay it back. Why should I do if it's taking it?
It's huge, isn't it? Yeah, we were thinking the same for ours. Yeah, we've done part of it, but yes, it's to do, we're doing it for the future of the planet, aren't we? Not to be I mean, obviously it is beneficial as well, because I'd value it. I mean, it's not about money, it's about, if we can afford it, it's about just getting the carbon down, isn't it? And
right, so
it just has to be done.
Yeah, it would be interesting to look at the what's it, Parish Online maps for Wendover, and if you did a campaign down Dobbins Lane where there's people with lots of money, could you do Dobbins Lane?
Yeah, go do the opposite end.
Don't know. Yeah,
grants for low income and loans. Yeah, and get people at the other end. Yeah, sounds a good plan. Yeah. Dobbins Lane. No people in Dobbins Lane. Great. Well, thanks so much, Murray. We'll can you make the 11th?
Don't know. We're due to go on holiday to the States, I think, the next day, so it's all a bit chaotic.
See how you go, but anyway, you'll be the projects will be started.
I will speak to my good lady wife. Yes.
Excellent.
Okay.
Thanks so much, Murray. Bye. Good to meet you. Bye.